When Barron Trump stepped up to the podium at his father's inauguration, no one expected that what seemed like a mere formal ritual would turn into a shock. In the tense atmosphere of such an important day, his words made the room go silent. Not a speech filled with political rhetoric or bold promises, but a simple yet powerful message of unity and hope. All eyes were fixed on Barron, and the surrounding air seemed to freeze as he began to speak. What he shared not only touched the hearts of those present, but also sparked a powerful wave of responses across the nation. Now, let's dive deeper into the story of that day. The atmosphere surrounding Donald Trump's inauguration in the Capitol was filled with both excitement and anxiety. The crowd cheered, waving flags, with an air of hope mingled with division, painting a stark picture of the nation. The Trump family stood together, presenting a strong image of unity, even though political disagreements and controversies never ceased. As Donald Trump stepped up to the podium, his voice rang out strongly, confidently outlining a vision of determination for the future. His words seemed not just like promises but a declaration of political revolution, a powerful call for change. But within that resounding space, there was an invisible tension spreading, as though his words couldn't fully soothe the deep cracks in the heart of the nation. After the speech concluded, the crowd erupted in applause, but all eyes turned to the Trump family. Melania, his graceful wife, stood beside their youngest son, Barron. At the age of 18, Barron was not just a symbol of maturity, but a tall, composed young man with a quiet yet captivating presence. Every gaze was on him, even though he stood there calmly, as if waiting for something. Suddenly, Barron, in his sharp black suit, stepped forward. He didn't rush, but walked with precision, as though gauging the crowd's reaction. The applause seemed to fade, replaced by murmurs and curious glances. Those around him were silent, unsure of what would happen next. His family, including Donald Trump, looked at their son with a mix of surprise and anticipation. Barron paused for a moment, his gaze sweeping over the crowd. Not hurried but resolute. He took a deep breath, adjusted his tie, and made his way to the podium. As his hand grasped the microphone, the atmosphere seemed to stand still. Everyone, despite the surrounding commotion, held their breath, waiting for his next words. With a deep, steady voice, Barron began. Today is not just my father's moment, but it is a moment for all of us. This is the time for us to reflect on ourselves and how we want to shape the future. His words felt like a gentle breeze, but enough to change everything. Questions began to arise in the minds of those present. What will he say next? Why now? Barron stood at the podium, in the vast space of the inauguration, with lights shining on his face. The crowd remained silent, awaiting his next words. Amidst the applause and laughter, Barron's voice rose like a strange wind, cutting through the atmosphere around him. Today is not just the day we applaud a new term, he said, his tone steady yet strong. But it is the moment we must look at ourselves and ask what will define the future of this country. He paused, his gaze seeming to pierce through the crowd, capturing the attention of everyone. A curious, indescribable feeling began to sweep over the crowd that was listening intently. Barron's voice was neither strong nor sentimental like typical political speeches. It was firm, but full of passion. I've stood on the sidelines for so long, he continued, not looking at anyone in particular, as if speaking to himself, listening to the arguments, witnessing people say they feel left behind. And I stayed silent, thinking I had no right to speak up. Each word he spoke was a part of his life, not empty words. His words struck the crowd hard, especially the younger people who had also felt left out. Barron didn't need to declare anything grand, but in every word, every sentence, he touched something deep within the listeners. We've let fears, anger, divide us, But silence changes nothing. It only makes things worse. A gentle ripple of unease spread through the crowd. But Barron didn't stop. He continued with a frankness that no one could deny. Barron didn't just criticize the existing problems. He challenged everyone to reflect on themselves. Agreement isn't always easy, he said with a slight smile. But his eyes were sharp and resolute. We won't always share the same viewpoint. But we must agree on one crucial point: this country deserves a bright future. And to achieve that, we must learn to listen to one another. He didn't say anything complicated. But his words were simple, understandable, yet powerful. It was a message not just for the leaders, but for everyone present. His words were like a bell ringing, sparking change from deep within each person. Barron stood on the podium, his shoulders slightly tense under the light of countless cameras. The space before him was a sea of people, but every face, every gaze, was focused on him. He took a deep breath, as if gathering all his strength for the words to come. Then, in a steady yet strong voice, he began. We've gone through tough days. But what troubles me the most isn't those challenges. Barron paused, his eyes sweeping over the crowd, as if ensuring everyone was listening. What troubles me is whether we dare to face the truth that it is us, not anyone else, who will determine the future of this country. His words were not flowery, but they carried an unimaginable weight. Each word felt like an arrow, piercing straight into the minds of those standing there. Barron paused for a moment, letting his own voice echo fade away. Then he continued. We can't wait for others. We can't blame the previous generation. And we can't avoid responsibility. Instead, we must ask ourselves, what have I done to make a change? Am I willing to step out of my comfort zone to build something better? Today, I stand here not to criticize, but to remind us that each of us has the power to change. The entire hall seemed frozen. No whispers. No shifting of feet. Everyone stood still, as if afraid that any sound would shatter this moment. Barron looked at them, his eyes shining with an unusual determination. Then he spoke the final words. Let our generation inherit a country where we don't have to hide or justify ourselves. Let us be proud. For that is the greatest gift you can give us. He stepped back from the podium, his hands clenched tightly, as if holding on to the surge of strength that had just risen within him. At first, the silence hung over the hall like a thick curtain. But then, from the back, a clap echoed. Another followed. And soon, the entire crowd erupted into thunderous applause. The applause was not political, nor was it for the typical praise often seen. It was applause born from empathy and awakening. People looked at each other, as if they had just experienced a rare moment when truth touched their hearts. In the hours that followed, Barron's speech quickly spread across all social media platforms. On TikTok, short clips of his speech were edited with emotional music, garnering millions of views. On Twitter, debates erupted between those praising the speech as a new beginning and those claiming it was just a publicity stunt. On Instagram, a photo capturing the moment Barron stood at the podium, the light casting upon his determined face, quickly garnered millions of likes. People left comments ranging from emotional, hopeful, to even skeptical. Major media outlets repeatedly aired the speech, calling it an iconic moment, while the world outside remained full of debate. One thing could not be denied: Barron Trump, who had once lived in the immense shadow of his family, had just raised a voice that the entire nation could not ignore. In the days following Barron Trump's speech, public opinion remained heated. Influential figures from various fields began to express their views. Oprah Winfrey, with her familiar warmth, shared on Twitter, "Not everyone has the courage to speak out when all eyes are watching." Barron Trump reminded us that sometimes sincerity is the most moving thing. Meanwhile, Late-night talk shows had no hesitation in mocking. A famous host scoffed. Did Barron write this speech himself? Or was it a product of the writing team? I'd bet there's an entire lighting and sound crew behind it too. However, the most surprising response came from the younger generation. On social media, videos sharing thoughts about Barron's speech began to flood in. A high school girl, her face full of emotion, said in a viral clip, "He said things I've never heard anyone say before. It made me believe that even someone as ordinary as me can change the world." Universities across the United States also saw an unprecedented wave of discussion. At one debate, a student stood up, her voice trembling but full of determination. "Barron may not know what it's like to struggle, but we can't deny that he has sparked important thoughts. Perhaps we need to learn how to listen more than just criticize." However, the appearance of opposing views was not surprising. A post on social media harshly criticized, "It's easy to talk about unity when you grow up in wealth and never have to worry about tomorrow. But for those of us struggling day by day, these words sound empty." Despite this, the wave of support for Barron continued to grow. A comment on Instagram responded, "He didn't choose where he was born, but he chose to stand up and speak out. That deserves recognition." Even within the Trump family, the reactions were surprising. A close source revealed that the speech was Barron's personal decision, which surprised family members, including his siblings. Ivanka Trump, often seen as the public face of the family on public matters, shared with friends, "I never thought he would have the courage to do that. But today, I feel prouder than ever." As for Donald Trump, who usually seeks to be the center of attention, he chose to remain silent this time. This decision led many to question whether he truly supported his son's speech. On social media platforms, the debate grew increasingly heated. Some saw Barron as a symbol of a new beginning, while others viewed him as a product of privilege and detachment from reality. But whether praised or criticized, Barron's speech had created one undeniable result. It forced people to stop and reflect on deeper issues: unity, compassion, and each individual's responsibility in building a better world. With all this attention, the biggest question still lingered: was this moment just a fleeting spark in the darkness, or the beginning of a journey toward real change? As the public analyzed Barron's speech, a deeper question emerged: what motivated him to step forward and speak on such an important stage? For someone who had spent most of his life avoiding the spotlight, this was an extraordinary decision. Those close to Barron began to share insights about the young man behind the public image. Teachers from his years at St. Andrew's Episcopal School in Maryland described him as a thoughtful student, someone who preferred to listen rather than speak, often absorbing debates and discussions without intervening. "He wasn't the loudest voice in the room," a former teacher recalled. "But when he spoke, it always meant something." His former classmates shared similar thoughts. Although his notable height and easily recognizable name made him impossible to overlook, Barron possessed a surprisingly humble demeanor. A high school friend shared, "He never leveraged his family name. If anything, he tried to downplay it. He wanted to be judged by who he was, not by where he came from." Barron's perspective seemed to have been shaped by the contradictions in his life. On one hand, he was the youngest son of one of the most controversial figures in modern history. On the other, he was just a teenager trying to find himself. Recent friends from his time at the Stern School of Business at New York University spoke of his curiosity and desire to understand the world around him. "He was always reading, always asking questions," a classmate revealed. "He wasn't afraid to tackle difficult topics. He wanted to understand why people thought the way they did, even when those views contradicted his own." Behind closed doors, Barron was said to have contemplated this moment for months. According to a family friend, he was deeply affected by the divisions he saw in the country and the criticism his family had received. He knew that people had preconceived notions about him simply because of his name. The source said. He wanted to show the world who he truly was. The decision to speak at his father's inauguration was not an easy one. Barron spent weeks drafting his speech, revising it, and seeking feedback from a small circle of trusted friends. He wanted every word to reflect his own thoughts and values, free from the influence of political strategists or family members. This was his moment. A close friend shared. He wasn't trying to represent his father or the administration. He was speaking as himself. His demeanor throughout the speech, calm, composed, but deeply heartfelt, spoke volumes about his thought process. Barron wasn't loud or charismatic, but his quiet confidence carried its own weight. Body language experts, who later analyzed his speech, pointed to deliberate pauses and measured gestures, revealing someone acutely aware of the impact of his words. Barron stepped onto the podium with a pounding heart, but his gaze remained steady and resolute. He knew every word he was about to say would be scrutinized, that his intentions could be misunderstood, or even turned into targets for attack. But that didn't deter him. To him, this wasn't just a speech, it was a heartfelt plea in an era full of noise. If just one person feels seen and understood, he had told a close friend, then all of this effort will be worth it. Barron wasn't seeking the spotlight or fame. Instead, he came with a heart full of hope, a hope for a day when people could see each other as human beings, not the labels society had placed upon them. He believed that the power of change didn't come from grand proclamations but started with small steps, with the courage to listen to a stranger. However, it wasn't easy for his message to break through the barriers. Skeptics would criticize him as being idealistic. The confused would question whether one individual's words could shake a system entrenched in division. And yet, the impact of his speech quickly transcended the confines of the inauguration. In the days that followed, the entire nation seemed to slow down to listen. On television, social and political commentators passionately debated the true meaning of the message he delivered. Some praised it as a rare moment when sincerity overpowered the noise, while others dismissed it as a fleeting dream in a harsh reality. But no one could deny that Barron had done something extraordinary. He had planted a seed in the heart of society. In San Diego, a group of high school students decided to turn the inspiration from Barron's speech into tangible action. They organized a community forum where people from different social backgrounds and political perspectives could come together and talk. If Barron dared to speak his truth in front of millions, one student shared, then why can't we start right here in our own neighborhood? These gatherings quickly evolved into profound conversations, where strangers listened and learned to understand one another without judgment. In Cincinnati, an initiative called The Bonding Place was born. Organizers used Barron's message of unity to kickstart meetings between neighbors who had been divided by political differences. There were no harsh criticisms or heated debates. Instead, participants shared personal stories, struggles, and hopes. We want to show that change doesn't have to start with grand gestures, one organizer shared. It can start right here, on the street where we live. On social media, Barron's message resonated more powerfully than ever. Young people, often dismissed as indifferent to social issues, began using TikTok and Instagram to spread the inspiration. They created the hashtag Act for Understanding, encouraging one another to take small actions to unite their communities. From teaching children at refugee camps to organizing local cultural exchange events. Within days, millions of videos were posted, turning Barron's speech into a source of inspiration for an entire generation. What stood out most wasn't what Barron said, but how he managed to ignite the spirit of a society that seemed too weary. While criticism persisted, the sparks of hope he lit had now turned into a flame in the hearts of many. Some responses to Barron's speech weren't positive. Critics argued that his views were idealistic and disconnected from reality. They contended that someone who had grown up surrounded by privilege and protection could not truly understand the struggles faced by ordinary Americans every day. A prominent political analyst bluntly remarked, "This speech feels like an emotional poem, but it lacks the practical solutions that people need." However, the criticism inadvertently fueled a wave of strong support. Many believe that the true power of the speech didn't lie in solving political problems, but in inspiring hope and unity. Within the Trump family, the impact of the speech was significant. Melania Trump, her eyes gleaming with pride, shared with a close friend, "My son has not only courage but also a heart. That's all I need to know." Barron's siblings, who were accustomed to media attention, couldn't hide their emotions. In an interview, Eric Trump shared, "Barron is usually very quiet, but whenever he speaks, it's always worth listening to." Even Donald Trump, often the center of attention, seemed to step back and let his youngest son take the spotlight. While he didn't issue an official statement, a close family friend revealed, "He told me that Barron has a sincerity and calmness that not everyone possesses. He feels a quiet pride, which is rare for Donald Trump." As the speech continued to spread, it extended beyond the realm of media. Several universities began using its content to teach leadership skills. Churches and synagogues echoed his call for unity in their sermons. Even some businesses adopted the message of understanding and empathy into their corporate culture development programs. However, among those who heard the speech, one lingering question remained: was this a turning point leading to lasting change? Or merely a fleeting moment of inspiration that would fade over time? The deepest meaning of the speech didn't lie in fame or family legacy but in its simple yet powerful message. We can choose to understand each other rather than divide. We can choose kindness instead of indifference. And most importantly, we can choose courage rather than accepting what is inherently wrong. These words were not a comprehensive solution but were like the first stones cast into a still pond, creating ripples with the potential to reach far beyond what anyone could predict. Barron did not stand before the crowd to speak of grand reforms or groundbreaking political decisions. Instead, he emphasized small but significant changes that each of us could make in our daily lives. It could be choosing to listen to a coworker whose views may differ completely from ours. It could be making an effort to get to know a neighbor we've never spoken to. It could be the small act of reaching out to a family member with whom we've had deep disagreements. Each action, seemingly insignificant, carried immense potential to reconnect the fragmented pieces of our society. The message Barron conveyed was by no means an easy one. For many, the biggest question was whether words could truly bring about change, whether they could create a turning point or would merely remain empty promises. But as his words began to resonate in conversations, in gatherings at homes, people realized that words from the heart have an unseen power to inspire action. And for those who recognized the value in Barron's message, the next step became clear. They began to change how they communicated and acted within their communities, seeking harmony in seemingly impossible situations. For those still unconvinced, Barron's message remained unchanged. Transformation doesn't depend on one specific leader or a grand vision, but lies in the belief that every individual has the ability to create a different, better world. Within the Trump family, where their name often sparked controversy, these moments revealed a different perspective. Barron was not just the son of a famous family but a person with awareness, forging his own path despite challenges and pressures. This demonstrated that even in difficult circumstances, one person's words could bring unity instead of division. When reflecting on this speech, the question isn't whether his words will leave a lasting mark, but rather, what we can truly do with those messages. The true legacy isn't a great speech to be remembered but the small actions, the seemingly minor yet sustainable changes in our daily lives. Will we let Barron's words remain an echo of the past? Or will we bring them into our lives, making them a guiding principle for our future? The choice is yours. Every small step in life can be the first step in a grand journey. It is those seemingly insignificant changes that are the true starting point for meaningful transformation. And as Barron emphasized, it is in these small steps that we can change the world. So, where will you begin? Share your inspiration. And if you believe in the power of hope and unity, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to continue following inspiring stories that remind us that each individual can make a difference. Continuing from those small steps, Barron's story does not stop at a single moment or a speech. It becomes a call to action, a reminder that every individual, no matter who they are or where they come from, has the power to bring about change. Change doesn't always stem from grand decisions or complex reforms, but sometimes it starts from quiet yet meaningful actions in daily life. We often look for miracles, for sudden transformations, without realizing that it is through simple yet sincere actions that we are building a better world. It might be a friendly handshake with someone you've never met before or a gentle word shared with someone who needs encouragement. Each small gesture could be the spark that ignites a larger wave of change. Barron has shown us that even when the world seems divided, we can still find common ground, still build bridges that connect differences. Change does not need to wait for miracles, it starts within ourselves. From the decisions we make every day, and when we all act, even in the smallest ways, we create a powerful wave of change that can erase all distances and dissolve all barriers. When you face disagreements, don't turn away. When you see division, don't ignore it. Be the first to step forward, the first to extend a hand, the first to speak words of harmony. It is these simple yet profoundly human actions that hold the key to unlocking a future we all desire, a world where every individual is respected, every voice is valued, and every step has the potential to create a better life. So, what will you do today to begin this journey of change? Don't hesitate, be the pioneer. And together, we will create a future where nothing is impossible. Let hope and unity guide the way. And let your small steps become great breakthroughs. Remember, change starts with you. Take action today and make a difference. Don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss out on other exciting and inspiring stories. We will always bring you engaging content to keep you motivated every day. Share this story with your friends and family so we can create positive changes in life together. Note, this is purely a fictional story, intended for entertainment and to convey meaningful messages. The content is not related to any real events or characters, and we are not responsible for any misunderstandings.